التحديات كبيرة، لكن مصر أكبر من كل التحديات.
خالص الشكر والتقدير باسمي وباسم شعب بلادي.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still continuing our coverage of the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune. His current visit to Egypt, he was just received by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi at Cairo International Airport a while ago. And on this significant and historical visit, we're glad to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Hussein Hareedy, former assistant to the Foreign Minister, who will shed more light on the significance of this visit. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon, Madam.
Ambassador Hareedy, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune have just arrived in Egypt, and he was met at the Cairo International Airport by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. This is an important visit by the Algerian President. How do you assess the significance of this visit and the most important topics expected to be tackled during the visit?
Well, of course, it was highly courteous on the part of President Sisi to receive Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune at the airport. And on the other hand, I guess this visit is particularly especially important, not only bilaterally, but taking into account the general state of affairs in North Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa and in the African continent. And also, Algeria is expected to host the next regular Arab summit.
Yes.
And this is the first visit for a long time, long time that I can remember,
yes,
that an Algerian president came to Egypt. We remember that President el-Sisi, the first foreign visit of President Sisi back in June 2014 was his stopover in Algeria and his meeting with the late President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And having said that, I guess the questions that would be raised during the Egyptian-Algeria summit do range from the bilateral to the Arab, to the regional, to the African. And on top of that, how the two countries could work together to fight terrorism, not only in the Middle East and in North Africa, but in sub-Saharan Africa and in the African continent. So the Egyptian-Algerian summit will discuss many important questions. And of course, it will be an occasion for the two presidents to review the agenda of the next Arab summit that will be hosted by Algeria in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yes.
Of course, the agenda of the next Arab summit is important. And the most important question on this agenda, if it will be included on the agenda, and I hope it will be the readmission of Syria into the League of Arab States.
Yes.
So to sum it up, I guess this is a highly important visit, not only because this is the first time that an Algerian president comes to visit Egypt officially for a long time, but also because Algeria and Egypt are two most stable countries, most secure countries in North Africa. Of course, the Egyptian-Algerian summit would go over the situation in Tunisia, and similarly, the situation in Libya and how Cairo and Algeria could work together with the international community, the African Union, the Arab League, the European Union, to advance the prospects of a successful transition to democracy in Libya.
Yes.
On top of that, the Palestinian question. As you may know, Madam, Algeria hosted in the last few days a meeting of the Palestinian organizations, Fatah and Hamas, in order to facilitate what is called the reconciliation or the national reconciliation among Palestinian organization and with the Palestinian Authority. So I would expect that during the Egyptian-Algerian summit, there will be a review of the Egyptian-Algerian efforts to bring the Palestinian organizations together.
Yes. Sir, as you mentioned, the talks between the two leaders will cover several issues and will focus on changing views over several issues of mutual concern, among which is, as you mentioned, the next Arab summit that will be held in Algeria, in addition to a number of issues. How do you see the significance of discussing regional security during this visit?
Well, of course, both Egypt and Algeria during the last few years were really exerting great efforts to defend their borders and to fight terrorist groups from entering infiltrating their borders, either from Libya or from Tunisia. So I guess the two countries, as I said, that are working together would be the anchor for security and stability in North Africa and in the southern flank of the Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. And I think that if Egypt and Algeria would really coordinate and work together in fighting terrorism, that would be a good plus for the international and Arab efforts in combating this scourge. So I believe that the Egyptian-Algerian summit is one of the, would be considered one of the most important summits held in Cairo in the year 2022. And to conclude, I hope that this visit would really open a new chapter, a new cooperation in many fields between Egypt and Algeria after a decade of instability and insecurity across North Africa.
Mm-hmm. Sir, how do you describe Egypt's foreign relations lately?
Well, Egyptian foreign policy is very effective, very credible. It enjoys the trust of our Arab partners, our Arab allies, as well as the trust of our European partners and our allies across the world. Yes. Egypt is conducting a very forward-looking foreign policy, and I would say that it's a very good one.
Yes, well, cooperation between Egypt and Algeria, sir, is not limited to political, economic, and commercial fields and investment also. It also includes highlighting the importance of education and culture. How do you see the significance of cultural activities in bridging the gap between Egypt and Algeria?
Well, of course, Madam, the history of Egyptian-Algerian relations is a very rich history. And of course, relations between the Egyptian and Algerian people are very good and I would say excellent relations. As far as cultural cooperation is concerned, we already have had a very promising cooperation with the Algerians from immediately after the independence of Algeria back in the early 60s.
Yes.
And now, of course, we can work after the visit of the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to Cairo. I guess the two countries would really push ahead with more exchange in cultural programs, in literature, in arts, and I'm very hopeful, Madam, that this visit would really give a great push for the bilateral relations between the two countries in all fields.
Yes, sir. Well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador.
My pleasure, madam.
Thank you,
My
sir.
pleasure.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank
Also,
you. Thank you.
Ambassador Hussein Hareedy, former assistant to the foreign minister, many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this special coverage of the arrival and the visit, the official visit by the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to Egypt. We will be continuing our coverage, minute by minute coverage for the important and official visit by the Algerian President. Many thanks for watching.
Egypt opens up to the world. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with world leaders.
وأعبر لكم عن خالص الشكر والتقدير على حفاوة الاستقبال وكرم الضيافة